like 7 years ago now, we started youth racing with UTV World Championship. So now we have generations of kids that start at 6 years old, and now they're just hitting the first wave of them. The Mitch Guthries, the Seth Contreras, RJ Andersons are, hitting their early 20s, and they're smoking everybody.
I know.
They just went to Dakar and smoked everybody. And then 2 women, that's the other thing is like we've got, Sarah Price is a savage,
she's been doing so good.
And Kristen Matlock.
Yeah, totally.
She's like, if I try to explain it to people, right? Yeah. And I try and put it in context. I'm like, they're like, oh, she'd be like the Ronda Rousey of off-road. I go, only if Ronda Rousey was then beating all the men. Because that's what Kristen's doing. She Iron Woman the 500, beat all the people in her class, and then I think she finished 3rd in UTVs overall, right? Could you speak in some Spanish?
¿Cómo está?
Está bien, ¿y tú?
Bien, gracias.
So this next one we're going to have is really cool, right?
That's a cool bottle.
This is a Pachuga, right?
Color, yeah.
And it's a style of mezcal that's done with it's distilled with like a tea bag. Oh. And in that tea bag is a bunch of different spices and herbs. Yeah. Also raw chicken. So
okay.
Which
can I have another grasshopper, please?
Which
this is interesting.
I'm dying.
So
here.
there's a lot of old religions and pagan religions in Mexico that have been reinvented, in different new processes. And this is one of the old school ones that has stayed, right? Yeah. And it's supposed to, it's supposed to be a little bit of magic, right?
Yeah.
So we'll have some visions and
maybe you drink enough of it. But you'll notice on this one thing that's different is the viscosity, right? So taste it because it has like a little bit of an oily taste.
I love that because now you're talking to me.
Yeah.
Explaining. Marcel, you get it too.
And they all smell delicious. This one smells a little bit different.
Yeah, lots of different flavors in this one. Right, this one's more like a variety of a bouquet of flavors. Right,
it is.
This out of the 3, this is my favorite.
I know it's so smooth, this is good. And like you said, like it like literally does melt in your mouth, kind of.
Yes,
it really does. It has such a different. Wow.
And maybe it was where I was sipping too.
No, it's just so.
I allowed it to come to the front of my mouth a little bit.
Yeah.
So it kind of like, it was, It's really. I'll have another.
Yeah.
That's
what that conversation. Wait, we're supposed to keep speaking.
Right. No, and this is one of my favorite ones as well.
It's really good.
Bozal is the company that produces this, but there's other people that make Pachugas as well. But Bozal makes a really good. High-end mezcal. I actually forgot to plug these guys. Zomos. It's a good friend of mine.
Get us their information.
Gotta give them the plug. Right?
There you go, right there.
Zomos Mezcal.
Zomos.
You're welcome.
Yeah, look
on Instagram.
So he doesn't go broke and disown me. He's basically like my brother. So
love it.
But yeah, that one's really good. And again, same thing. It's like that's one of the things that I love about traveling is learning the history of these areas and understanding their culture and really getting the off-road experience, right? Like I've been to this one of the areas where they make this style in particular, and they still distill it in these old clay pots and do it the old way, and it's a tradition that really dates back to the Mayan civilization, right? And it is a little bit of animal sacrifice into the. That's
where the magic comes
from,
right?
Into the mezcal. So it's pretty cool.
So what I love is that with the mint, you give someone a bottle of something typically, and so where did that come about? And the bottles are absolutely stunning too as well. Like, so when you've raced there and you can purchase them as well.
Yeah, or
They
decanters.
already have, they have their decanters.
So let's back all the way up, right? And talk about the Mint 400
Yeah.
and how that all, because not all of our viewers or the person sitting next to you is going to know all of the information
Sure.
about the Mint.
Yeah, we
went
jumped
from
forward
Ken
there.
Block to
Just
the
a
Mint
couple
400.
decades.
And I'm like,
No, so
big span.
we Mad Media is an agency, a content group, and we were doing a ton of content, and we started doing more and more off-road content because there was an evolution happening where younger and younger people were coming into the sport and doing well, performing at the top. And traditionally before that, it was really the top performers were older people, right?
Yeah.
Older people like me now, but like when I was younger, it was the turnoff. You would see a guy win the ball 1,000, and he'd pour his gut out of the car, right? And some big fat, it wasn't cool. Was not cool. I just remember being so bummed, like that was such a cool. And then the dude gets out of the car, and you're like
how do you
somebody's
pull that
grandfather. It's
because you couldn't relate to that.
no,
at all.
and action sports in particular was very youth centric.
Oh,
right?
totally.
So it was like,
Yeah.
oh, you're 30, you're done.
Yeah.
So that was a good and a bad thing, and so we kind of had that mindset. So, we first started working with a young racer named Brian Eichler, and he goes, I should probably introduce you to my friend Andy. And he introduced us to Andy McMillan, and
wow.
started doing work with Andy, and and then it kind of expanded beyond that. And in this process, we were going to these races and filming. And these promoters were 70-year-old white men who, I was getting.
This is their
Sounds
holiday.
like
Yeah.
hot rodding too.
Well, I'm like, I'm
Same
like,
type of thing,
hey,
yeah.
dude, you need a website? No, I don't need a website. Hey, you need Facebook? What Facebook?
Yeah.
I have a book. You know what I mean? Like,
He was
just
back in MySpace.
he wasn't even MySpace. That would have been revolutionary. So it was like we had been, because we were proximate to it on the inside of X Games and watched how ESPN had taken these ragtag sports
Yep.
and grouped them together and made a business out of it.
It was
you know?
amazing to see that extreme action.
Yeah.
Like that all changed.
And go to the
space.
events. And
Yeah.
Just,
yeah.
It was, I could tell you being at X Games 1, like it took a while. I mean, I don't know
Sure.
if you remember, they had like ice pick climbing and downhill, trash lid tobogganing, and no, it was a mess. Yeah. Street luge is my favorite type of skateboarding. Yeah. Yeah.
Really, the trash can one? Are you okay.
The damn street luge guys, dude. Like,
Yeah.
you gotta love them because they have big cojones, but they're not skateboarders. They're street lugers. Different thing, right?
Totally.
But it's still, it was cool to go through, to be a part of that process of distillation.
Yeah.
Right. And what worked and what didn't work,
Sure.
and really kind of be behind the scenes with that. Like, me and my brother were just the whole time we're like just observing, you know.
Yep.
And so we thought we could apply some of that stuff to to off road, and we had been hired by General Tire. The Mint had been resurrected by a small organization in Nevada called SNOR, Southern Nevada Off-Road Association, or enthusiasts. And we'd work with them. We'd done TV for the first 2 years, and we actually knocked it out of the park because we were doing a lot of work at the time for Fuel Television.
Yeah.
And so I leveraged my relationship with Fuel. I made the head execs look at this TV show that we had created, and we were always trying to pioneer stuff. I knew that from a young age, like trying new technology and new things was paramount to making good cinematography. And so
Interesting. Yeah.
so we we got a hold of these red cameras that Jim Gennard had made.
Oh, wow.
And, they're very new.
Game changers.
And nobody was dumb enough to take them into the dirt except for us.
And how expensive they were.
Yeah, it was a bad business plan, but it worked, right? And so we captured something. We captured slow-mo of off-road racing that had never been really captured. I mean, there have been some predecessors who'd shot some slow-mo stuff on film, but it was very limited.
Yeah.
And so I sat down these executives and like used every favor I had, and I'm like, just give me, I thought if I get 10 minutes, if these guys watch 10 minutes of it, I'm good, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And all of them stayed in the room for the whole show.
Awesome.
And they, the guy actually who was running fuel at the time, CJ Oliveras, is like, he looks at me and he goes, it's good. We're going to put it on. And they put on fuel, and it became one of the highest rated shows. And that consequently made them run the shit out of it, right? So we had a show that nobody thought was, going to work within the context of fuel. It becomes, I don't even know how many times they ran it, hundreds of times, throughout the year. So it just it blows the men up, right? So there was nobody had television at that time in off-road. There was a little bit. But
few and far between, because even in that space, like people like knew about off-road but didn't talk about off-road. Like you said, like the action sports, like extreme action sports, like it kind of like paved that path a little bit of like there's this cool thing happening out there, but like you don't really hear about it too much.
No, because it's
Mickey
not
Thompson.
Unless, I was going to say,
like
his era.
Stadium,
Yes.
more stadium truck type stuff. Not you knew about the Baja 1000, but you couldn't see what was happening. So you were able to like package it and put it and make people feel it by seeing it
and bring in new eyeballs. Right, because this was not like, hey, let's shove it over at midnight on the Speed Channel.
Yeah,
this was like prime time.
Oh yeah, no, you guys got
they switched from skateboarding to the Mint 400, so you have this younger demographic seeing all this stuff going, that looks cool. Right, and that's exactly what we wanted.
Selling cool. That's
right.
This is it. This is what it is.
So, second year we're talking to Snore, and they're like, "Yeah, man, we screwed up our relationship with the BLM. We're not going to do the race." I'm like, "Whoa.
Yeah,
we have money from sponsors,
and you guys are excited.
Yeah, we're not giving this money back. It was super difficult to get this money and this commitment. Like, we got to figure this out." And they're like, "No, man, we're out." Blah blah. So, I kind of panicked. Because we put so much effort into it, and I'm like, sell it to me. And they're like, what are we selling to you? The name? And I'm like, yes. I knew the name was valuable. I just, I didn't know. I wasn't a promoter. I didn't know if we could do it or.
You weren't a promoter yet.
No.
Yet.
But at all.
Right.
And, so the board voted on it, and they're like, ha, we'll sell it. We'll make some money off this guy and sell it. It's worth nothing. Yeah. And, I go to the BLM after that, and they're like, we're not giving you a permit. And I'm like, okay, I understand that. How do I do this? And they're like, there's only one guy that we would possibly consider. And I was already going to talk to Casey Folks, right? At Besta Desert. Yeah. And my idea was like, I go to him, we'll handle the marketing side, what we're good at, and the content side, you do the race operations. And, went and met with Casey, and he was like a little kid in a candy shop. I knew, 5 sentences in, we had a deal. Because he's smiling so hard, I thought his head was going to peel back. and he basically explains to me that the very first race that he ever volunteered at was like 1978, Mint 400, when Walt Lott was running it, and he described the whole event and everything, and I'm like, cool, then we have a deal. He goes, we have a deal. And he went to the BLM and got the permit for the first year, and we were like 2 months away from when it was supposed to happen, so it was a miracle, and really a tribute to Casey because of his good standing with the BLM. Sure. They trusted him. And we had a great relationship for years until Casey passed. And then we just got to the point where we're like, hey, we got it, and so we took over all the race operations and brought everything in-house, and, that were 4 years, I think that was 4 years ago, maybe 5, losing track, right? And so now we're like, hey, let's do another race. Last year we started the California 300.
Yep.
And we just got the Parker 400. So now we have a 3-race series.
And a new series, yes.
Unlimited off-road racing.
Yep.
And we called that because this form of motorsport is really the only form of motorsport that's truly unlimited. Yeah. So the trophy truck class, or the unlimited truck class as we call it.
Yeah.
If you can dream up an engine, transmission, drivetrain, and it looks like a truck, it just has to look like a truck. That's really the only rule.
I like that.
You can run it.
It really is.
Electric, diesel, jet engine, what do you got?
Yeah.
Right? If you think you can make a better mousetrap, then do it.
Mousetrap.
And that's what's radical about it, is that, you know, we're at a point where it's like we have these incredible people within our culture, and many of them, they are not schooled engineers. They're not schooled car builders. They're people who learn this, you know, on their own. And, you know, I can go on and on about, you know, just incredible people who have not just changed racing, but the things that they invented by osmosis are in your Raptor, they're in your Jeep, they're in your Tacoma.
Yep.
You know, everybody from suspension, John Marking, who just recently passed, to Nye Frank, who's a legendary car builder, to Lynn Cheneth, who's a legendary car builder. You know, Robbie Pierce, who's a good friend of mine who just passed from Jimco. You know, now Neil Mason and his brother building 4-wheel drive trophy trucks. And you know, there's so many guys, you know, and it's crazy because you'll meet these guys and like, you know, oh, you built this race car? How did you come up with these theories, and then build not just the car, but the gearbox and the front diff and the, you know, the level of mechanical engineering, the problem solving is really unparalleled. I mean, I'm biased because I'm within this culture, but like everybody goes on and on about Formula One. I'm like, hey, a Formula One car, it goes really fast and it turns really fast. But it can.
What things have to do for off-road racing is
cannot
insane.
go over, you know, 4-foot bumps at 100+ miles.
No, it can't. And I think what it is that you're enveloped in what's happening. You understand it. So like you have to be in the vehicle. You have to be driving it to understand how it needs to get better. So like, yes, do you need to know a little bit of the other stuff? Like maybe there's some math involved in other things. But half of the time, you really need to feel a car.
Right.
You know, if you're driving it, like, oh, okay, I understand what needs to happen and what I can make better for it to perform better. Yeah. And you just need to be in it.
Yep.
And that's what people don't understand half the time is just do it. Just do it, and you'll keep getting better at doing it, you know?
And we have a unique thing in that there's quite a few guys in our culture that build what they race.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And prep it.
Yeah.
Right? So like when something's going wrong with the vehicle, they're like, oh, you know what? We're going to lose drive shaft.
Yeah.
And they're mentally preparing for how they're going to fix that as quick as possible, right?
Yes.
Like it's really cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like pull into the pits and yell at everybody and it's their fault, right?
No.
It's like, oh no, actually you turned every bolt on the car.
Yeah.
So if it breaks, it's because either you screwed up in prep or you hit something.
Yeah.
Right.
Isn't it crazy how much it's a team sport? You know,
Absolutely.
And people don't, you know, like, oh, okay, there's a driver. Yeah, but that car has to perform at its best for it to be what it is. And there's so many aspects of what it means to be a team as part of that. I mean, even, you know, putting a production on like the Mint 400 and, you know, unlimited off-road racing, like there's so many aspects to that really bring that all together.
Oh, we have an amazing, passionate group of very intelligent people. And that's the other thing that I love about this is it's like real-time, high-level problem solving. Yeah. So it attracts these people that are like, you know, maybe they're not stimulated enough in their job or their life. And they, you know, a lot of them come and volunteer. They're like, they call me up and they're like, hey, you know, I've seen this and I think I could, you know, do this. I'm like, all right, come on. Yeah. You know, so I love it. It's a really cool culture. You know, it values, you know, hard work. It values intelligence. and it values just, the commitment that, isn't there in a lot of things now, right? I mean, we have people that are just lifers. We have people drive from other states, so they can come volunteer and work a pit, and then
it's a passion for being there. I mean,
and then they thank us. They're like, "Thank you for letting us come do this." I'm like,
right.
Okay.
GTS Customs Corvette Specialists. Passion is the driving force behind every design, every build. Innovation taking the client's dream car places never thought possible. Not just seductive form, but flawless function, showcasing today's technology in yesterday's classic curves in luxury and in performance. Head over to highoctanehustle.com, shop the brands page, and check out GTS Customs Corvette Specialists.
You are taking something on that's so big like that, and maybe awesome that these people are volunteering and helping you. You're putting that on your shoulders, no matter what, however that looks.
I love it. For me, it's also a pride thing, and not just me personally, but it's an American thing. Like, I'm 50. I just turned 50. And, I grew up in this era where there was a lot of incredible shit going on, and there were incredible people, and they were saying crazy shit, and they were backing it up, and I love that. That to me was like, it supercharged you. You're like, what? You're going to do what? Like Evel Knievel.
Yeah, totally.
Like, now you look at him and you're like, okay, he was a little crazy, but that spirit of America of like, we can do anything. I think it's very important, and we've lost that a little bit. And so I think, the other really rad thing about what we're doing is that this, the best way I can describe it is helping people unlock something within their DNA.
Ooh, I like that.
Right? So like, you go through 400 miles of the Mint 400, and at the end of it, you look at me and you're like, okay, that was badass.
Yeah.
Like, now I know what I'm capable of.
Yep.
There's parts of it that sucked, like
That's a metaphor for life, though.
100% it is.
I mean, it doesn't.
Were we talking about that on the way? Or
No, 100%.
All metaphors for life.
No, listen, 100%. Totally. I mean, what do you think? Science, right?
Yeah.
Our genetics are on a 2,000-year lag, right? So what do you think our ancestors were doing 2,000 years ago? I could tell you that they weren't sitting in front of computers.
Yeah.
There was a sacrifice, and it was in this bottle.
They were definitely drinking mezcal type
the chicken.
alcohols, right? The pechuga, right?
The pechuga with the apoyo.
Exactly. So that's the thing. I really love that part. Is really off-road racing. It's a distiller, right? Because you distill down who your friends are, who your family is, who you can rely on, right? Because you find out
that's racing, though. Wow. I was gonna say I don't do off-road, but I absolutely on-road understand that 100%.
Okay, so
I hear exactly what you're
saying
right now.
Take the on-road thing and supercharge it, because in order to have friends that help you with
my husband
off-road,
also did off-road too.
it's like
it's a different level.
It's like, hey,
it's a different level.
I'm in Laredo with a broken trailer. What are you doing right now?
Right.
Like, I call my friend Archie, we're pre-running with the McMillans, and literally like, hey, you're the only person I know with an F-350 in a trailer. Can you come get this pre-runner?
Yeah.
So the ask is, can you drive
3/4 of the way down in Mexico?
a day and a half in another country with all your personal stuff.
Yes. You got your passport?
Right?
Yeah.
With all your personal stuff, realize, right?
Yeah.
And we'll give you gas money, but that's it. Come save my ass.
Yeah.
And he did.
Yeah.
Right. And those are the type of people that, like, that's the cool thing about off-road racing is you find out really quick who your friends are.
I totally
Who you can
agree.
rely on, right? Like, you could still be friends with that guy.
Yeah.
But you can't rely on him.
Yep.
And same thing with your family is like, it brings family together in a way that is very unique, especially the father-son, the mother-daughter relationship. Like, I don't know, like when I was 20, I was not friends with my dad. You know what I mean? So now when I see, people like Andy McMillan and Scott McMillan, and all these younger generations come up and they're like besties, You know what I mean? Like they hang out and talk about off-road racing because they have that in common. And that in this day and age, I think that's critical and it's beautiful. So, you know, like 7 years ago now, we started youth racing with UTV World Championship. So now we have generations of kids that start at 6 years old, and now they're just hitting the first wave of them, the Mitch Guthries, the Seth Conteros, the RJ Andersons are, you know, hitting their early 20s, and they're smoking everybody.
I know.
You know, they just went to Dakar and smoked everybody.
It's insane.
You know, I'm sitting there this was like 2 years ago when they went to Saudi, and I'm standing next to like Cyril Dupre, and he's going, I cannot understand why these kids are so good. And I'm like, well, because they started at 6 and they're 20 now.
Exactly. So
You know?
they have that much time under their belts.
Yeah.
And people don't get that. That's crazy.
Yeah, and they're you know, by the time they're 20, they're at such a high level off-road. We've never had this before.
I know.
So I'm really excited about, you know, what the future is, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, and then 2 women, you know, that's the other thing is like we've got, you know, Sarah Price is a savage. You know,
she's been doing so good.
And Kristen Matlock.
Yeah, totally.
She's like, I try and explain it to people, right? Yeah. You know, and I try and put it in context. I'm like, you know, they're like, oh, she'd be like the Ronda Rousey of off-road. I go, only if Ronda Rousey was then beating all the men. Because that's what Kristen's doing. She Iron Woman the 500, beat all the people in her class, and then I think she finished 3rd in UTVs overall. Right?
Yeah, I know she's doing great.
I mean,
her and Sarah are like smoking right now. They both are.
Sarah's on like she won the Sonora rally.
Yeah.
She just won Nora.
Yeah.
And I was
like finished first in UTVs.
So I just texted her and I'm like, hey, we got to do this podcast next week. And she's like, well, I'm going to go do this local race and see how I do tomorrow. Yeah. Right? So yeah, she's awesome. Yeah. So now because she won the Sonora Rally, that wins her a entry to Dakar.
I saw that.
So
she is so stoked about that.
I told her we need to figure out how to fund it.
Right?
So
totally.
There's a couple zeros that have to
right. A little different, but
so I told her
where she's at, I don't think she'd have a problem getting, you know.
Well, I told her, I think we should do it. We should crowdfund it.
Yeah.
You know, and do like Team America, like let's send a woman, an American woman to Saudi Arabia.
Well, and I was just going to say, she did all the electric racing too out there.
Right, but Saudi Arabia, think of the significance. Women, they only let women drive a couple of years ago. I drove in Saudi Arabia. Right? So now
totally agree.
We're going to send an American woman to Saudi Arabia to kick everybody's ass. Right?
Totally.
I'm totally down with that.
Yeah.
I'll put some money into that.
I love it. It's so good. I mean, so going back, because you had mentioned Mickey Thompson off-road races. So that was like me back in the day. Like I would go with my parents. I was probably like 8 or 9 years old and stuff.
You probably watched Greg race there.
Probably. Yeah. Probably. And we went to all of them in the Riverside, out at the Rose Bowl. And I remember sitting there and hearing Mercedes Gonzalez's name. That I heard, I was like, there's a chick out there. Yeah. And I just thought like, that means all of us can do that. Yeah. And that's all it takes. Like, it just takes those moments like that, right? For people to hear people like Sarah Price going to do that. Like you said, like supporting her to be out there in a place that barely have allowed women to ever, like their culture does not allow that.
I'm pretty sure you're not allowed to wear open-toed shoes still, right? There? Or
it was I don't know. It got a little more open in the last couple of years.
Fantastic.
So I said I got to drive that out there. I got to drive in the sand dunes. So I've been making sure I drive everywhere I go.
That's important.
But yeah, it's so different, and it's awesome to see that and like where that's even going to progress, because watching Sarah when they were doing, I can't think of the name of the series, when they were doing the electric, thank you, Extreme E. So they were doing the off-road racing with the electric car vehicles out there, and seeing like people out there doing that kind of stuff in general. And you're just like, wow, it's amazing. It's all next level stuff. I mean, it looks like freaking Star Wars out there. Totally. It does. In all of this, I love that you're bringing, more of that Baja feel back up to the States.
Well, it's part of our culture. I mean,
I know.
1968 was the first Baja 1000.
Yeah.
And simultaneously was the first Mint 400.
Yeah.
So like our culture started in Baja, and then secondarily started parallel in America. So Baja is a really important part of it's the spiritual mecca really of off-road culture. And if you haven't been down there, and you haven't had a good off-road experience, I could definitely recommend a bunch of ways to do it, but you don't really need to go crazy. I mean, you could go do it in your Jeep, your UTV, your motorcycle.
Yeah.
Most of the roads down there are graded roads, so it's not super gnarly.
Yeah, it's like a fire road, basically, or something like that. They're not too crazy.
Man, I feel so lucky. I started going to Baja when I was 12.
Yeah,
and it's my backyard, right?
Yeah.
And I love it. And like for me, it's funny because people are like, "Oh yeah, you're done with the mint. Are you gonna go to sleep for a few days?" I'm like, I didn't have time to go to Baja because I had some other stuff coming up. But I literally went straight to Ocotillo for 2 days and rode.
Love it.
Did average probably 200 miles a day.
Yep.
And that's how I unwind. That's what that's my zen, right? But yeah, Baja is, I can't recommend it more. I mean, again, it's like one of those things you're like, you don't want to tell anybody, but
but you want to shout it.
You want to share. You want to share.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you, like, we started a series for a while before COVID called the Legends Rally. And it was really fun. We were taking people down in UTVs, and then we would have a legend like Walker Evans lead us, and we would, go stop at lunch at a winery and, go to the cheese cave, the 100-year-old cheese cave there, and then, go to the some of the 100-year-old farms in the mountains, and El Coyote and Rancho Melling, and it's just magical. You know what I mean?
It really is.
It's right there. You don't have to get on a plane and go to Europe to have this experience.
Yeah. It's like California, but untouched. And that's what people do not get. And you can go all the way down. It's magical.
Yeah, but you can go.
And have you been? That's what I'm.
Great race, Baja.
What areas?
Polaris.
Like Ensenada and stuff?
Started in Ensenada and all the way down. Yeah.
That's what I thought.
But that was a long time ago. You were 12, I was 19.
Yeah. Well,
but it is a tremendous amount of magic too.
It is. Yes. We started going to San Felipe. I was probably like 5 or something like that. So yeah, Baja's just been like
we
part
cross
of
paths
what
there as well.
Probably.
I guess we better hurry up and drink because Cinco de Mayo is going to be over soon.
No, we're good. I think this is a good pace. Talk
I don't know what happened, but my cup is getting a little bit fuller.
So, just like, the whole champagne thing. So
Champagne.
Mezcal's only...
I love champagne.
Mezcal's only certain regions, right? So they make mezcal outside of it, but they don't allow them to call it mezcal for political reasons, right?
It's like Parmesan.
Right.
So this one's called Bacanora, right?
Bacanora.
So this is from a region. This is a mezcal from a region that they don't allow it to be called mezcal, right? So, and very different flavor profile, as you'll see here.
Okay.
Yeah, my cup got fuller. Oh, it smells very smooth.
Yeah.
Like very floral on the out.
It is.
Right?
And it hits like right away.
Right.
Like it hits the top. Where the other ones like hit down low really quickly. Yeah. This one like goes up and it's very aromatic.
Yeah, it's very aromatic.
It's got a good mouthfeel.
Yeah.
Sorry, edit that out. I'm doing my whole champagne. Edit that out.
No, it's all good.
Yeah,
I probably got lipstick all in my face.
No, you're good.
Checking me, making sure I don't make funny faces.
How different is that than
it is.
You're right, and
that's really interesting. No, it hits so differently.
Still my favorite.
It was. That was
really good.
It literally melts in your mouth though.
This one, it's interesting how it probably hits each individual differently. Mm-hmm. Because this is leaving that whole mouthfeel for quite a few moments, where the other kind of disappears, and I don't taste any smokiness on that one.
That one's not very smoky at all.
Okay, good. Then so your husband's over there laughing.
Is he?
Yeah, he's laughing at your
always laughs.
your dorky co-host.
Laughing's good, right?
Always. I do a lot of it.
Bretta, you could be over here and you could be laughing right next to me.
Most people hear me before they see me.
Right.
Yeah. So that's pretty typical.
That's a good thing.
Mm-hmm. That was so amazing.
Right?
Yeah, who'd have thought? Hey, grasshopper and...
But I wanted to get back into okay.
Baja Forge. It isn't just the products and it's not just a brand. It's a way of life. At an early age, traveling to Baja was one of my fondest memories. It was about venturing to unknown destinations. It was the freedom of exploration and really slowing down to enjoy the amazing world and the people we have in it. Baja Forge is about helping you embrace adventure. Baja Forged. Signature vehicle builds and off-road products built to forge your own path. Visit bajaforged.com today.
Because you offer the decanter, you said.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
so let's
that's
go
where
back
that
to
was
that.
all going.
Being a graphic designer myself, it's interesting to me that so many people like Ken Block and like you, even Miles, there's a design sense to all of this.
Oh, 100%.
But people don't see it. They're not told it's there. They don't, it's like even when I do paint jobs, it's like the very subtle things that people don't really notice. We were talking about the golden ratio, right?
Yes. I asked her if she knew
And I
about
was
the
like,
golden ratio.
well,
in
I knew the
design.
Mona Lisa
Yeah.
type thing. And I was
Yeah.
like, even in design school, I'm like, I don't remember specifically looking at that, but I know as a designer, I just know there's certain things like you know what shot you need to get.
Composition, light, yeah.
But you just know that it's innate in you. That's it. It's something that I think, and maybe it grew into that, but you still it's like a gut thing too.
Well, now it is, but I mean, it didn't start that way when I was younger. I mean, I looked at things and I knew certain things were aesthetically pleasing and other things weren't. It's funny, not to get off on a complete other podcast episode, but that's what tattooing was. I really liked the aesthetics of tattooing.
Yeah.
I just didn't like the tattoos for the most part. And fortunately, living in San Diego, there was a tattoo shop called Avalon Tattoo, and the husband and wife team that started it, Patty Kelly and Fit Buchanan, they ushered in the modern era of tattooing because they had been schooled in art school, and Patty's father was a famous artist who'd done art for the Grateful Dead and lots of bands. So they were artists first who got into tattooing, who started applying, more of those aesthetics to tattooing. And then there was a small group of people that they're involved with that really ushered in the modern era of tattooing. Before that, it was whatever's on the walls, what you get. And, it was mostly Sailor Jerry type stuff, right?
Yeah.
So, they were the first ones to start doing, a lot of the different art that you see today, right? And they were definitely the root of it. And then it, obviously tattooing now is just unbelievable.
Yeah. So it's so important because I don't think people realize how much design has an effect on our life. Yes, we like things aesthetically, and I think we know that. And we just, as people, we're just that's cool. I don't know why it's cool, but it's cool.
Sure.
But we know there's more. We know it's a culture. It's something that it's an extension of your personality. It's where you find your tribe. It's so much more that people don't, they don't know why they like it, but they like it.
Yeah. I mean, design
it's what brings them in.
Design is everything.
It is.
It's we can, again, this could be another couple podcasts, but when you look at, what are the coolest cars? What are the sexiest cars?
Corvettes.
Really? You think so? Are you Corvette girl?
Well, I have an old Corvette. Yes.
I like, I do.
But curves too.
Yeah,
in general.
it has everything to do with curves.
A Raptor, you had mentioned too.
Yeah.
Same thing. There is something about lines on something like that. You need,
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I like the old world aesthetics of Ferrari, and some of the early European car makers. Okay. But I like the I like the American translation of that. I like Corvettes, but the one for me when I was a kid, when you saw it, you were like, holy shit, it was Cobra,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And curves, again, I go back to that. There's so much about curves and people don't get it. Like some of the cars today don't have that, and trophy trucks have curves.
Some of them do. I mean, that's,
a lot of them, but
I think there's a lot of terrible design in off-road. And it's weird.
There's a lot of terrible design in general.
I'll tell you, as a graphic designer, one of the things that has driven me crazy is like why the graphics in off-roading are so bad, and we figured it out. Like I'm being dead serious, right? So if you look at the way that the scalloping and striping is in off-road, you know where that comes from?
No.
Boats.
Oh my God, that's so good.
All those people are river people.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
So they literally, I remember sitting with Scott McMillan, and he's describing to me what he wants on this trophy truck design, and I'm like a boat? I'm like, you want it to look like a boat? That's the dumbest thing ever. And they're hideous, right?
Okay,
but it's just, it's this thing. It's lexicon. It's man covets what he knows, right?
Yeah.
So if he doesn't know any other aesthetic, then he's going to be like, well, I want it to match my boat, right?
And that's what the
Sorry, Scott.
That's what the Ken Block part. That's what he brought into that, because he infused what was happening that you guys were able to capture with a super badass vehicle that you watched that was like, it was different.
So what people have to understand about Ken is he was a curator and a connoisseur of design, right?
I know.
Like even to the point where...
But people didn't know that.
No, and even...
It wasn't spoken about.
Even to the point where we had some amazing arguments, and because he grew up in North County, San Diego, but he traveled to Japan, he traveled all over the United States, so he had an aesthetic, and it was different. It was different from my aesthetic, and especially because I grew up in Black culture as a kid, so I had a very different point of view and aesthetic than he did, and then I was exposed to a lot of art as a kid, and then going forward, exposed to a lot of art, and then there was things that we agreed on and crossed over on. Like a mutual friend of ours who went to college with us was to this day amazing graffiti artist named Persuay, and graffiti was something that I grew up with, at a very young age.
Yeah, in that
but then
area,
when I
for
saw
sure.
the white kid translation of it, it didn't work for me. Like I gotta, I'll tell a really cool Ken story. Like I remember when they showed him and Damon showed me the first DC shoes, and I'm like, you guys should go invest in real estate. This is a bad idea. That's literally what I told them. Like, you guys aren't shoe designers, and but what I didn't understand, because I was from the inner city and they were from the suburbs, and what they saw was the whole Eminem effect coming, and because it's almost like you're making fun of their culture, but in the suburbs you can get away with it, right? And so that's what I didn't understand about the Eminem effect, right? And how big it was going to be, and obviously Ken understood that, Damon understood that, and they took advantage of that with DC. After a while, I understood it, and then when we went and helped launch Osiris shoes, we embraced it, and to the point where people used to tease us and call it Osiris.
Yeah. And
I would laugh. I would go, "Yep, we're going to take it all the way to the bank." The design that Ken brought into automotive was really important with everything that he did. The look and feel, then that would carry over into products, and people, like, to this day, they don't get it. I see it all the time, where actually the coolest one I've seen lately is Tavel Vidolsla did a live reveal on his new Mason, and we photoed it. And, it's some beautiful historical Mexican art on it. Mm-hmm. And it tells, the whole story.
I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was good.
That was the coolest livery I've seen in a long time. So, it drives me crazy. Like,
there's a lot of custom paint type.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but when I see bad design, like, I want to fix it. I like want to walk over to that guy and be like, oh man, like I'll help you, bro.
You just tap on my shoulder. You're like,
Yeah.
hey, so.
Yeah, it's gonna cost you $5,000, but I'm gonna help you. You know, but no,
I love
it's you know, and it's funny because this is a very important thing that I figured out, you know, after years of being a graphic designer, and then being frustrated that people were taking my ideas and mistranslating them. So that's part of why I started Mad Media. Is I wanted a small group where I could walk into every room and I could have control over web design, over print, over video, and have cohesive branding across all those mediums. And we do that now. Like I literally, you know, create a look and feel for the mint. And then that look and feel gets applied to everything, including the decanters.
And okay, and it's the look and feel, it's the culture.
Yeah.
Because even like the mint, you have contingency. People don't get how important contingency is to actually being part of the race, you know?
Yeah,
like,
it's our off-road festival.
That's down in Baja, you get that. You kind of get it up here in different ways.
Not really.
But you know.
No,
yeah,
it's
not
really. It's really just us in Baja.
Yeah, and so
it's important.
Yeah,
you know?
in the design and culture part of it, there's so many little things. It's like you had mentioned before. It's the details of all of those little things. Like, hey, we brought this to you too. So yeah, no, go into the decanter more because it's amazing, just as amazing as all of this mezcal.
You know,
the
the decanters started back in the day with KJ Howe. And they had done a deal with Jim Beam, and Jim Beam was using these as marketing tools. So they made these really cool, you know, decanters. And
have you seen them, Jane? They're amazing.
I have not.
Oh my God.
But we'll
all
probably
custom.
have them on our
I'm sure, Jane, you'll put them up.
So I'll see it then.
So then, you know, when we took it over, it took us a couple years to figure out. You know, I actually had to go down a rabbit hole because, you know, the factory that made them back in the day was in Ohio. It doesn't exist anymore. They did it there because they were using clay from the Ohio River. Like I actually went around the town, like knocked on doors, asked people if they could make these for us, and they're like, no. So the current ones were made in China. We're actually, the next grouping of them will be made in Mexico. And what we do as a tradition now is the winner of the previous year adorns the front of it. So every year it's a different.
That's newer then, right?
Yeah. Every year it's a different racer who's won the mint.
It's cool.
And then some of them we put all the racers who've won it listed on the back.
Cool.
And then, you know, traditionally we've had different alcohols in it. Lately we haven't had an alcohol. Just from a logistical standpoint, it's easier to ship somebody a decanter without alcohol.
I know you guys are having problems with that too.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you know, I've realized how many laws I've broken being a promoter.
Whatever.
You know, inadvertently.
Have you been caught?
Yeah.
No.
Fantastic.
I've been told to stop, but you know. The best one was when we were handing decanters out to our racers, and you know, it's a family thing, and so they have their kids come up, and I know the kid, and I hand the kid a bottle of booze, you know, and we are in the
That's
golden.
like, hey Johnny, bring me my beer.
Right.
Well, that's how I grew up. Look at me, right?
Right.
You turned out great.
Yeah, right.
Me too.
The manager at the time of the Golden Nugget comes over to me and goes, "You can't do that." And I was like, why? What's the big deal? And he goes, it's against the law. I'm like,
you can get those things called handcuffs
on
you.
So no, literally, then we literally had to go into the alley and give everybody their bottles in the alley. It was hilarious.
So, but you do, like, you have like a jacket, you have, you know, a decanter, you have all these things. Why do you do that? Like, why do you think that's important to what you're doing?
Because it's what we're doing is special.
Yeah.
You know, and it's important to make that effort. I mean,
I agree.
You know, everything in the world is turned to plastic crap.
Right.
You know, and I don't subscribe to that. You know, so as long as I'm around, we're gonna do shit the old way, the hard way, the cool way, and we're gonna make stuff badass.
Yeah.
You know,
it is.
Don't leave a sister hanging. Come on, dude.
I don't. You know, it's one of those things where I'm like, I think of it as I race, how I want to be treated. And what I want to wear and what I want to,
it's not even just
embody.
race. It's just a people thing. It's a interacting. It's a relationship.
I mean, look,
thing.
even in our clothing, like all of our stuff that we produce with Dirt Co.
Totally.
It's quality's our gimmick. Pick a shirt blank that costs us $2 more because that's the shirt blank I want, not because we're gonna not make $2. It's because, and it's funny because, we've done this so long that like. When it's not the same, customers will call us out on it.
Right?
Guys will go, hey, I'd put that shirt on and that's not the blank you guys use.
So funny. I
like,
returned
got
it. I have a company that I buy sweatshirts from that's a small business in our neighborhood. And I bought another. I was so excited. I'm like, oh, yeah, Mafia shirt, cool. I returned it. I'm like, doesn't fit like the other 3 I've bought from you guys. What did you do? I guess we won't buy those anymore. I'm like, probably a good idea.
Yeah. No, and it's something that we're all missing. It's part of culture is like interacting. It's relationships. It's making people feel appreciated.
Yeah, and art is a big part of it. I
know.
I was in Paris and I finally got to go tour the Louvre. And it was rad, but 80% of it's religious art. And what it made me realize is that then part of the indoctrination process of religion is art, right? So you're looking at this art that's 1,000 years old, and you're like, dude, 1,000 years ago, this is remarkable now. Sure. I don't know how they made this,
right?
And if I did know,
lighting,
the process was gnarly, right? So foil embossing, painting, layers, it's crazy. So if 1,000 years ago, if you walked into a church and saw that, you'd be like, whatever these guys are saying, I'm in, right?
Yeah.
So it's that same idea of art being a pillar of culture and then merchandise as well. It's like, what are we doing? You can't leave a baseball game and then go to an off-road race and you're like, you have 2 T-shirts? I mean, it's a joke. So, I mean, we have to emulate and learn from all these other sports, motorsports, etc. And that's what our consumers want. I mean, one of the reasons
they want to feel like they're part of something.
Yeah, and they
really do.
They want to give you their money. That's what's crazy about it. Is like, I remember going to off-road races early on, and I'm like looking at these guys dressed head to toe in Quicksilver that don't even surf.
I know, right?
Yeah, and I'm like, they're simply buying that because there is no alternate.
Yeah.
So that's part of the reason that we started Dirt Co. Is like, I surf, but I don't identify with the majority of the surf brands now because most of them are owned by, investment firms, not my friends, right? And so part of the culture was you were wearing that brand to support your friends, the riders who rode for them, right? Yeah. And that's kind of, it still exists in little pockets, right? Yeah. But that's, why we started doing our own merch with the Mint. And as that became successful, we're like, okay, we're only satisfying like 4 days of sales. Like we better start thinking about the other 361 days of the year, right? Yeah. And we started Dirt Co. And now we offer, stuff for other races as well as stuff, and funny problem solving things like I'll send you some of our socks. We have these off-road socks that I created because I spent a week with a bunch of scummy dudes, in trucks, and like I literally threw away their socks because it's gonna get smelly and stuff like this, but it got gnarly. And
they were standing up in a row all by themselves.
No, but they're all like tucked away and like
crusty.
You're driving for miles and you're just getting this the gnarliest BO foot waif. And I'm like, this is gross, right? So I came back and I'm like, man, there's got to be something besides cotton that's more antibacterial, right? Yeah, wool, but you don't want wool socks in the desert.
Yeah.
So I figure out bamboo.
That's right.
Is antimicrobial. You can literally wear our socks for a week and they don't smell. Awesome. And they're softer than cotton. right? And they're more durable, and they're more friendly to the planet.
And see, that's all design too, and people don't
100%.
really like. You were talking about that too, like it's form and function, like it's all part of it.
Yeah.
People just don't realize like that it's a thing.
Yeah.
You know, you kind of have to let them know.
100%.
Are you okay?
Oh yeah, I'm fine.
Okay,
I had an itch.
Good, because we have.
Sorry, you caught me.
Okay.
We have another one. So this is
Okay.
yet
Thank
another.
you for asking. She thought I was gonna fall off my seat. Oh shit!
Not yet. A couple more
Not yet.
shots.
No,
Not yet.
no.
This is another mezcal that technically is not allowed to be called a mezcal. It's called Satol, right?
Okay.
It's in a region outside of what technically is allowed to be called mezcal.
Okay.
And this one to me is one of my favorite ones because you can really taste the terroir in this. It's like very like earthy and rooty, right? So it's different than the other ones. Let's give this a try.
Oh, I like the way it smells.
Definitely earthy. Yes.
To me, it tastes like a little bit like sweet potato, right?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
I think this one's it's right on par with the Bazal
Yeah.
for me.
Good.
Well, with the
That's-
It's
Pachuga.
very smooth.
Pachuga.
Yeah.
Pachuga.
Now, is this also like a reposado?
This is a
Does
reposado.
anyone else want to come
Reposado?
on over and join?
Look at them. I was gonna say they're
There
all
you
gonna
go.
say no. What is this?
See? He knew. He
You can
was
have-
like, I'll dive
You can
in.
have a small sip. Here,
And
that's
then-
a clean
and then
one.
We
I
have
think.
our,
Right?
Contrary to the way that I look, I promise I'm over 21.
Did you have the? Did you already try the worm?
I did not try the
salt
worm.
thing stuff. It's amazing.
That's a
so
grasshopper.
So drink that first.
Okey-doke.
Oh,
There you go.
Thank you very much.
yeah. This one is. That one's really, really smooth.
Yeah.
And the heat happens down here instead of.
Yeah, it doesn't.
Up on the
it's
top
not,
of my palate.
It's not bitey. It's not peppery,
It
right?
doesn't have that. It's so nice to be able to kind of
It's not even funny.
taste the difference.
It's not even
really
funny.
good.
It's
Right?
right. Like
Okay,
it's
thanks.
not even funny how amazing it is.
Thanks for your drop by drinking.
That one got me.
choking.
No, it was just like a. It was a light cough.
That's good. This was the best.
Like that one?
Well, no, I'm talking about the whole experience,
This
not just the.
episode?
Well, no. Well,
you, Matt.
yes. Thank you.
But
You should
see?
come pre-running with me. It's
But-
like this
but
for
see,
2 days, right?
This is what this is about because
Can we do
this
it?
Life
Can we
is
do
about
an on the road
experience.
off-road show?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
on the
100%.
road off-road.
Yeah, there you go.
When's that?
Not at the, I'm a little busy then. That's not my good side.
No, that's delicious.
Well, especially
Thank
because
you.
it's on Cinco de Mayo, so we're like,
It's an experience. Like that's what life should be. Like this journey of life shouldn't just be like you're going through it. Like you just stop in the moment and enjoy why you're out in the middle of nowhere, why you're here at the moment of doing this. Like
Yeah.
it's all those little things like that add up to like
Life.
did you slow down and like appreciate what you're doing?
I feel like I'm going to interrupt you here. I feel like the next great idea for Mad Media. Once upon a time, I worked for a woman who did retreats. This would be this whole idea based on
He
I'm-
has done things like this.
So I'm in.
great.
I think that sounds like such an amazing opportunity because you're not sitting around in a bar just drinking to get drunk. You're enjoying conversation, which is what we're about. And having, somebody like you who does so many great, amazing things, come in and educate us.
I know.
That's
It's so
really
good.
rad. Thank you.
It's really fun doing it out off road, right? That's one of my favorite things to do, and just to share some of those experiences with people.
Right.
I mean, there's, again, not just in Baja, but everywhere, Ocotillo, Johnson Valley. I mean, it's right there. The opportunities are right there. You just have to, get off the road.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
I love that. I know. Okay. So that means we should get off our seats and leave.
Are we wrapping it up?
Are we
Is
wrapping it
that
up?
what you're
I was trying to be
saying?
funny,
Okay,
but you guys, it wasn't my doing.
None of this happened.
None of it.
I mean, what stays here at the studio, that's it.
Yeah.
No one else will know
It's
what
like
happened.
Vegas. Right?
better than
what happens
Vegas.
in Vegas. Yeah, it's way better.
We're in some odd part of LA that I don't even know where it's at.
It's
so-
undisclosed
Yeah.
location.
Well, thank you, Matt, for coming today.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It was amazing. I think what we really wanted to dive into was, like the background of all that. And you really shared that with us, Obviously, you have some amazing things happening with Unlimited Off-Road Racing and what the next things are that you're doing like that. Was there anything else that you wanted to share too? Or
No, I mean, really, our next event is California 300 in October.
Barstow.
Yep. Come out, bring your family
That's
and
all
friends.
local to you guys. Well, I don't know who's watching, but yes.
It's local,
Yep.
right?
To us, it is.
Yeah, Southern California. So
Yep.
Does anybody
Yeah,
need
come
a
on.
co-driver? Does anyone need somebody to sit in the passenger
I'm sure
seat?
we could find you a ride.
And I want to go.
I'm sure we can find you a ride.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Deal.
All right. Easy
I'm
enough.
in.
Yes.
There you go.
Right.
I
And
mean,
that's
I
the
think
way
that-
you do it.
Yeah, that you guys, we want to go on the road, off road.
Always.
That's the name of
Wait,
my new
isn't
show.
that what we do all the time?
On the road, off road. Yes.
Like even this week, just like you, my husband and I, we drove to Moab. It was like a 36-hour turnaround. So we literally, I know, right? But that's what we do. Yeah. Like I've driven from Cabo to my house in 24 hours too. I mean, that's just what we do. Yeah. Like if you want to go like experience things, you have to be out experiencing it, people. Yeah. You have to do it. Yeah.
And
you
if
don't just
24 hours doesn't seem like enough time, you can do it in 36.
Give you a couple more hours.
Absolutely.
Good.
I recommend doing it slower, but
Yeah. So you can go and see the
That's right.
different.
If you have the time,
Yeah.
do it slower.
definitely.
I love it.
Thank you for sharing with us today. I love that you were able to share a little bit of like who you are and really like where you're going with all of that. So
Yeah, it was fun. Thanks for having me.
Great.
Thank you so
it was
much.
great.
Okay, guys, thanks so much. I'm Fastlane Jane.
And I'm Design Muse.
And this is,
Matt Martelli.
and that was High Octane Hustling.